What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of Office Hour Tangents, O Tangents for short. Um, this is a special episode. This is our fourth one, my fourth one. I don't know who R is, but my fourth one. And it's a special, I call it a special episode because I'm actually on spring break. So I'm not actually coming from a class right now. I'm on spring break, but just to put it in context, I was talking to a young lady in the coffee shop that I go to, Deke's in Delray. Best coffee that I've ever had in the whole world, just being honest. Um, and we were talking about her being a recent design graduate and all that entails. She had applied for a gig. We'll get into that. So while we were talking, I'm like, hey, I think other recent graduates and soon to be design or creative field related graduates would benefit from your perspective in this conversation. So I was like, hey, I got this new podcast that I'm rocking out. You want to do it? And she was like, sure. So here we go. This is how it happens. Just be ready at all times. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first guest on O Tangents, Minjun Song.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cool beans. So she was gracious enough to provide us with her perspective, being a recent design graduate. So as you told me, you were a graduate of University of Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your degree program called?
So my degree was part of the visual studies program, or my degree was called visual arts studies. That's what it was called. It was part of the School of Art, and it gave me more freedom to kind of do a little bit of pre-med, a little bit of art, while still being in the School of Art. So my graphic design background was more of a certificate,
Okay.
which they offered for people. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you just to bring your microphone. You can move it. It's
Okay.
fully. Yeah. You
Gotcha.
can get it comfortable how you want it to be.
Okay, there we go.
But let me see. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna bring it this way so it's not right in front of you.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So that sounds similar to my background as far as my degree program because I went to University of Pittsburgh, so pretty large state school.
Yeah.
Not as large as UF, but I have an architectural studies degree.
Okay.
So I don't even have a graphic design degree. It was more in that degree program at the time was more art theory and fine art. So I did a lot of drawing, a lot of painting,
Yes.
a lot of like Asian art, Frank Lloyd Wright, a lot of stuff like that. We did a little bit of model bending, but it wasn't a graphic design program. I just had one graphic design class.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that further in another O Tangents because I think that's relevant. But yeah, so I just kind of like became a graphic designer because of the time that I graduated, which was like 2000.
Yeah.
So I get that. So what made you stop pre-med and kind of lean more into the creative stuff?
So when I was growing up, I always wanted to like keep that creative part, but I think the logic part of my brain was like, oh, you can't be a fine artist or a gallery artist or anything like that. And so I was doing pre-med, but I knew in the back of my mind that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And at the same time, I'm taking these fine art classes, like drawing, painting, and also knowing that that's not what I wanted to do. And in the same fashion where I took one graphic design class, I remember you were talking about like your students who take your web design class kind of like something they just have to take.
Right.
And they treat it like math. I kind of treated it like, okay, I have to do this. I don't know anything about graphic design, but I have to take this. And I ended up being, in my opinion, at the time, pretty good at it. Like it kind of scratched both itches where it's like I can be more logical, like design, you have to have a bit of logic about that. You can, like think formularity about it, but also have a creative eye for it.
Yep.
And so I think that's what led me to pursue that, where I get to be creative, but still that kind of in the back of my mind make money.
Word.
So
No, I agree totally with that. I panicked. So when I graduated high school, I was always an artist. I was always an artist. That's what I always thought. Well, I always said I was going to be an architect. Like that was always what I said. But when I graduated high school, I'm like, I panicked. Like, only thing I hear about artists is starving artists. Like
Yeah.
that's all I hear is starving. And I don't want to be starving. And in architecture, I just didn't know enough about it. Even though I wanted to do it, I just thought I would be designing houses. That's what I wanted to do, was like design houses. And but I panicked and I was like, I need something with money, and I chose computer science because I was like, okay, in video games. That's really how it was. I was playing baseball and I just kind of chose computer science, figured out what it was, learned about it, learned about the logic related to it, which I did like. I like to know, like, if I did this, then make this happen. Like, that was dope to me. But then when I got to Pitt and I was working on those projects, and it was just like, I'm gonna be doing this all day with my life, like looking at code, like the Matrix all day. So I like changed my major to architecture studies. Like, let me get back. Then I figured out what architect. I was like, well, architects don't do what I want to do. Like, I want to do the design part of the architect. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I get it. And I think a lot of designers are in that boat. It's kind of like they come back to it. Like, they try other things and it's like, come back to being creative. Like, you've always been that person. A lot of times. I could dig it. How was that program? Did it teach you a lot? Did you find out you had to learn a lot more after you graduated?
So UF does have a graphic design major, and you apply to be in it in your second year.
Mm-hmm.
And it is also very competitive. I remember specifically when I was in that first graphic design class, it was like that typography one. There was a girl going around asking people, "Are you applying to the graphic design program?" Like, kind of like she would like look over our work. "Are you applying for the graphic design program?" And you would tell them like, "Yeah or no." She'd be like, she kind of like mutter under her breath, like, "Ah, that means more competition."
Mm.
And it was tough. I remember I had friends who, we were in the middle of our like other graphic design class, and they were finding out right then and there whether they got in or not. And I remember 2 of them didn't get in. They were kind of crushed.
Wow.
But in terms of the graphic design certificate, I think I took, after in my second semester of my second year, that was when I would take about 1 or 2 graphic design classes a semester. And I would say I learned enough to get me comfortable in print and using Adobe Illustrator, of course. And that's about it. I don't think it taught me enough of how to be a designer in the real world.
Mm.
I did have one class that was more kind of a studio-based class where you kind of work the community-based business. And you work as a studio, but even then, that wasn't my last year of college, so that got interrupted by COVID too.
We're gonna get to that.
So I would say that I could have learned a lot more, and I did have to learn a lot more after I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I remember hearing some friends say the same thing about the degree program at UF2. I do think that they got a lot more in depth about the principles of graphic design, being more of that sort of designer. But even so, I believe I remember hearing them say it didn't prepare them well enough. Which you can only go so far when you feel like
Yeah.
the professional kind of being, you gotta practice professional.
You right?
Yeah.
I haven't fought for it yet, but I've always said I can only take on one fight at a time. But I always thought there should be at least one professional practices class in any major really, but especially the creative majors.
Yeah.
Because you have to learn all that stuff, like basically like rule number 1, like what should you charge for your work? What should your salary be? Yeah.
Yeah. That was like one of the hardest things, trying to freelance and knowing how much do I charge. Honestly, I still don't know. I'm just guessing at this point.
I can help you with that. But yeah, it's just it's not a. There's a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, and I'm mad I can't remember the name of the book right now. But it's like a tall book. That's the only way I can like picture it. Like they're always coming these like It's more tall than wide. It's like
Yeah.
a unusually tall book, and it talks about professional practices, and they come out with a new version every year, and it comes up with new salary requirements and value. I'll let you know the name of it. I think I might have one in my office, but it kind of fills in a lot of those gaps. But you know how we are as creatives. Well, I could just speak for myself. I'm a visual person. Like I'm not gonna like go through a book, especially with the internet now. Like I'm back in the day, I would go through this book, but by the time they print the book, the rules have changed. That's how I feel about books in general in our field.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah. So you mentioned. Well, before we get to the COVID thing, because we're gonna definitely touch. You graduated right after the COVID shutdown in March 2020. So you graduated. You said May 2020.
May 2020.
So I definitely got to get it in there. But before that, what kind of skills do you think that have you had to learn on your own after graduation to kind of feel that you're relevant to the field?
Well, I mean, anything professional related, like resume building. How do I market myself as a designer? How do I sell myself? Tell people about what my skills are and where my skills lie. Anything related to the interview process, just mostly about the professional aspect of it all, and also probably like file organization. That might just be a me thing, but I had to definitely really hone in on my file organization.
That would be part of that class that I would have.
Yeah,
like
it's very
naming
important.
conventions, file organization, which cloud services you should probably use.
Yeah.
Like all that little stuff, all that little game that we get, that we as professionals get, we should pass on to y'all. I pass on to the students in between, in my classes when they ask. Then I'll like elaborate. But I think it should be a whole, maybe not a 16-week class, but I think it should be at least, a couple week.
Like something like dedicated to it, because I did have a student graphic designer job while I was at UF, and I did learn some of that there through the job, not through my graphic design program. And so I think that, and I think a lot of people kind of agreed to that, having some dedication to the to the professional aspect of being a designer was probably something that we all wish we would have had. Also building my portfolio. Our final project for one of our classes was for us to build our portfolio. Also, I do believe that was also one of my last classes that got bombarded by COVID.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's usually the last class in these majors. Yeah.
And it wasn't so much of talking about what kind of practice you should do in your portfolio, like studies, things like that. It was just build it, present it, the end.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. So what kind of jobs are you applying for now? I don't even say jobs, like jobs / any entrepreneurial aspirations or freelance consultant.
So at the moment, I did try freelancing for a bit. I did successfully do one freelance project, and that was difficult. And I think the most difficult part was, again, kind of convincing them or persuading them into my pricing, or letting them know why I might charge this amount. And there was a lot of negotiating done where it was, okay, I don't want to spend this much. Let me lessen my scope of what I want.
Yeah.
And so after kind of realizing the hustle freelancing is, I was like, okay, I want to work somewhere. I don't want to freelance. And so as of now, I'm looking for anything that will fall into my skill set, anything in branding, marketing. I now have UI design under my belt, so visual design, anything like that. Those are what I'm applying to, both agency side and house. That's
Okay.
currently what I'm looking for.
Where, what do you use for UI for your UI work? What software do you use? Figma. Did you learn Figma at all at UF?
That was another thing. I was wondering, when did Figma become kind of the industry standard? Because nobody I knew touched Figma in college, at least in my certificate.
Yeah.
I don't know about the degree, but I didn't learn any of that in college.
Yeah, like I think Figma became the industry standard. I would say, and this is, I don't know, I'm just making a guess of kind of when I started using it. To be honest, COVID is like I said, it's like a hole in my memory.
Yeah.
So it's like before COVID and after COVID. So it had to be like 2 or 3 years before COVID. So I'm thinking about 5, 6 years ago. Because before that, I was using Adobe XD.
Yeah, I had friends who were using that for projects.
Yeah, so before that was it. But before that was Sketch. So Sketch was like the industry standard for a minute. And that was even before I started messing with it because I was still doing UI design and using Photoshop.
Yeah.
And I never touched Sketch because I wasn't doing enough. But I started using InVision. I started especially for my classes so I used to use a combination of Photoshop and InVision because Photoshop you design it, and then InVision you could take your Photoshop artboards when Photoshop added artboards. You could take your artboards into InVision. InVision would automatically make it into a prototype that you can test.
Did InVision shut down? I think I got an email.
I think it's about to. I think I did see something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad because InVision was dope, but it was like a prototyping. It was like a testing tool at first, and then they added prototyping so they could see they was getting beat down probably by Sketch, and they added the ability because I was also using Marvel app. I don't know if you ever heard that. For anybody, these are the tools of the trade for UI design. To be honest, if you want to kind of have your sketches, if you just want to use pencil and paper, right, and have your sketches on paper. Marvel app used to. I don't know if the new one because I did download it and try it. Marvel app has grown up, and I think they hide this feature. It's not like a feature. They hide it. I think they still have it where you could take a picture of your drawings with your phone, and then those become the prototype. And then you can add interactivity to your drawings, like what buttons, what to push, and I used that actually when I taught at FAMU. For my students, and even my students watching, you remember that project with Marvel app? That was like cutting edge. It had to be like 12 years ago. That's how ahead of the time sometimes I be. I'm just blowing my own. I don't care. Like, I've been doing, right? And so that's interesting because I use Figma in my classes. They have to use Figma, but I don't teach Figma. And anybody that knows me as a professor, I don't usually teach software.
Yeah.
I just have projects where you have to use the software.
I think that's kind of how it typically goes anyway. I find that when you teach the software, honestly, I find it a little bit of a waste of time. I think it's good to hear, oh, Figma is capable of doing this for you. Okay, now try it out. Like, right. At least for me, I learn best, like, when I'm doing it, like, as I go, learning as I go. And so I remember I was taking a UI certification course, and he would have segments where he would teach us, okay, like, this is how you make a frame. Mm-hmm. And things like, I don't know, different aspects of Figma that he would then kind of have us do. And I wouldn't call it a waste of time, actually. I would just say that it's best, I think, like, that approach where it's like you have to use Figma, kind of maybe giving guidance of, like, this is what you can do with this, what you can do with this, but not actually teaching it is, I feel like, kind of the way to go.
Yeah, it's like if a teacher teaches me the software, then I feel like I'm going to use the software like the teacher uses it. It's kind of like if not to be religious about it, but it's like, I'm not even going to say it, but like a religious books, any of these religious books out there, religious text, the person who teaches you that text, you kind of learn it from their perspective, from how they learned it. and not yourself if you read it yourself. So I like giving projects, and I'll give little tips, and any questions, I'll answer all the questions.
Yeah.
But it's like, go and try yourself. And I feel like students, they'll learn it more. They remember more of it if it's they learned it themselves. Especially, I mean, like, not to date, I am dating myself, whatever, but, you know, it's not that long ago when YouTube didn't exist. You just couldn't go on the internet and figure out how to do stuff.
Yeah, like, all the Figma tutorials that Figma makes himself are really comprehensive. They're really good.
And it's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it's like a waste of time, like you said, to, I feel like I'm wasting the students' time, like their valuable time with me.
Mhm.
If I'm doing something that they can just go to YouTube or Figma or whatever and do it themselves. Like I'm gonna maximize the time with me.
Yeah.
Other than just teaching software. Like, hey, grab your mouse. Okay, go to the menu. You know where the menu is? Hit file.
Yeah.
New. Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
And then it's like the class is over and we just opened up a new document.
I think that's what it's like. You also, the trial and error also is what really helped you learn. I remember I learned Illustrator all on my own because my freshman year I made a graphic design project without even realizing I made a graphic design project. I made posters.
Right.
And that was all just learning on my own. How does Illustrator work? Like, why do I prefer Illustrator over Photoshop? Oh, because they're vectors. Like, that was all kind of learning as I went, and now Illustrator's just like second nature.
That's the first major program I learned.
Yeah.
I learned it using it was called a book called an Illustrator Bible. It's about this thick, and I went cover to cover to learn it. That was like kind of like you. I was like, hey, I want to be a graphic designer, but I'm like a junior. I'm about to graduate. I can't change my major. I don't want to change my major, and there's no graphic design major. There was only one class, and yeah, I think I mentioned another class, but I did get Illustrator, and I think I learned Dreamweaver that way. Yeah. Photoshop, I just like started playing around with it, like I was never taught Photoshop. So yeah. Okay, so COVID. So this is the what we really were talking about, because I think this is what makes. I don't want to call your you like in your generation. I don't want to say generation, but I think we have to, the powers that be, whoever the powers that be, to like make up words. The word maker upper or industry, whatever. There needs to be a word for graduates, either high school graduates, college graduates who graduated during COVID, in and around COVID. Because I think that affects a lot of things.
I mean, I think they kind of touch on that with the word Zoomers. I mean,
That's what they call y'all?
Like, I think they kind of call Gen Z Zoomers because everything we did school over Zoom. Everything was over Zoom. So I think that's what.
But it's like you're a unique case, in my opinion, because you did school before COVID. So you did school how we got used to how school was done.
Yeah.
And then right at the end, you had to Zoom it, and you had to like probably present your final presentation on Zoom. Yeah. And you probably couldn't meet with your teachers afterwards.
Yeah, the final few months of all my design classes were difficult, especially because I had a really old computer. I had a really old computer, and so I was taking design classes and I was taking a 3D animation class as well. And my poor 2015 MacBook that I did not buy for design purposes, I thought this is going to be a Google machine, this is going to be a note machine. And so presenting it was hard, where like a fan would go off.
Like this fan is going off. So if anybody sees my hand coming in here, it's just this fan on this machine. So if you can hear a little background noise, but I apologize. Yeah.
But yeah, it was hard because most of these design classes were meant to be in person and to be able to like collaborate in person, see what you're working on. Like there was always time. These were 3-hour-long classes, and probably the last hour and a half was just dedicated to like, okay, work on your project. If you have any questions, like come to me. If you want feedback, come to me. Which was great. I was able to get the kind of feedback that I needed, and I couldn't really do that with COVID because not only was I think if we really wanted to, we all could have been on the Zoom and semester into, but I think also everybody was in a state of mind where like, what is going on?
It's so new.
We're tired.
We didn't know what Zoom was.
Yeah.
Zoom became Zoom when it became Zoom.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't know.
And so like those last few months were difficult. I think also I kind of gave a little bit because COVID itself was a very scary thing. Like all of these new things happening, these things you don't know about. It took a toll on, everybody. Everybody can talk about what kind of mental toll it took on them.
Right.
So that was a really weird time to be in. Like I'm graduating and I'm supposed to go into the next step in my professional career, even though the world kind of feels like it's ending right now. I definitely kind of it stagnated my growth, my progression, and kind of left me feeling very lost.
Can you expound on? You said you gave up a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Like, I didn't want to try as hard. I was going through my own personal things too, and I kind of felt like it doesn't matter right now. It's what I'm doing right now. It doesn't even matter when I don't know what the next year ahead of us is going to look like.
That was the very, very, very beginning. We didn't know anything.
We didn't know anything. And, like, personally, too, I have, like, an autoimmune condition. So I was like, I don't even know if I can step outside and feel comfortable.
Wow.
And so I kind of was like, yeah, I don't, like, kind of like, what's the point? That led to feeling some regrets later on, but no time wasting energy on regrets anymore. But, like, I think a lot of people, again, kind of felt very confused and then kind of, because the structure of everything kind of crumbled.
Yeah.
It was hard to keep yourself motivated, keep yourself going. And so I definitely took, like, a bit of a hiatus. And felt, again, very lost as to, like, what does the future look like right now?
When you say the future, are you talking about, I'm assuming this, but I don't want to take words out your mouth, like your future as a professional, or coupled with like the future of the world?
Yeah, the general idea of like, what does my future look like? What does the rest of the world? I remember back then, feeling like we're never gonna get out of it. Like I remember thinking like things will never be the same. I'm gonna feel like I have to wear a mask all the time. I'm not gonna feel comfortable touching anything. Obviously, that's not how it is now.
Yeah.
But like back then, I was like, I don't know when this is gonna end.
Right.
I don't think this will ever end.
Right.
Maybe that was my disaster thing back then, but it was just full of uncertainty. And again, personally, I was going through some things too. I wasn't as secure as and confident in my craft as I probably should have been back then. Like as a recent graduate, like the most recent graduate you could be, I was probably comparing myself to both people who are further, like, years of design experience, and people who, may have had a lot more education in their design career than I might have, and putting that level of perfectionism on myself, like I have to be the best.
Right.
I am not the best. I am not going to stand out in all competition, and I won't get a job. And so all of that kind of compounded on itself into feeling, plus COVID, very, very lost.
That's interesting. You use that word competition. I use that word in my classes often. It's a very, I'm an athlete, ex-athlete, I guess, but I think I think creative fields I think it's competition in all professions, right? You graduate at the same time, everybody's going for the same jobs. But I think for our field, it's just a little different because it's so visual.
Yeah.
It's like your thing against your colleague's thing. Which one is the best or the most effective? This one. And it's very like visual, and you're sitting there and you're like, yours didn't get chosen. It's like,
It's subjective.
It's very subjective. Yeah. Like very subjective. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. And it can be stressful.
Yeah.
One thing I teach in I don't know the exact stat, and I got this a while back, but I got this stat was said the design is second behind medical school at the time I got this stat. of overall demand of the learner when you're in higher education. So, which means, basically means that students who study design are stressed out, and they're only medical school students are more stressed out than them. That's how I take it. And even if that's not the exact stat or anything like that, just the fact that that is even mentioned, like people don't think of design or design school as being like up there with medical school, law school, biology, anything else, to be honest. Like it almost, they put us at the bottom. I'm just being honest. They think we can draw well. They think we're like God. God gave us the ability to be artists. We don't have to really work hard for it.
Yeah.
Right? So when it comes to competition, especially between people that don't know what we do, it's very subjective and can be very stressful because, especially in K through 12, we're usually 2 plus 2 is 4. They mark it on your worksheet wrong or right. It's either wrong or right. Everything is wrong or right. You take these standardized tests, it's either wrong or right. There's no like partial credits a lot of times. It's just like right or wrong. And then when you get into design, which they don't usually teach design in schools, they teach art. And art is like, you can do whatever you want. It's beautiful because you think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're beautiful and you're an artist. Everybody's an artist. But when you get to design school, especially a reputable one, it's like, no.
No,
like,
you suck. Like...
yeah, it's kind of like, yo, like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, you're not working hard enough. Or you could spend 8 hours on something, 24 hours or something, all night. Then you get to class and put it up next to your colleague stuff. And even before the critique, you'd be like, oh.
Yeah, you look at it the next day and you're like, oh my God, I hate what I made. And I remember I was working on a project in school and I was feeling really lost. I didn't really know where to take it. The due date was coming up and I asked my friend for some advice. I'm like, hey, what do you think of this direction? And she asked me, she was a very talented designer in the graphic design major. She asked me, do you want a soft critique or a hard critique? I'm like, so you're basically telling me, do you want your feelings hurt or not? And I'm like, fine, give it to me. Like, hurt my feelings.
Right.
And she was like, I don't know what you're doing with this. I can't see where this is going. I really don't understand what, the intention is behind this. And it crushed me.
Like, what year was this?
This was my senior year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this was, like, probably late 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely crushed me because there I was feeling so stuck. And in any creative sense, there's gonna be a time when you're stuck. And I was kind of like, that kind of added to like, okay, I'm going to give up a little bit. I was like, I know what she said. I hear what she's saying here, but I cannot think of anything else. I'm going to take this front of it. In the end, I think personally, it ended up, working out well. I was able to expand on it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it became a little bit more conclusive. And at least the feedback that I got was generally positive. Although that class, my professor was very nice.
Okay.
I don't think he would often give much negative feedback. If it was more about technical things.
Yeah.
Which I do also wish I got a little bit more of. Like, I wanted to get practice with bad, and being told that it's not good. A lot of that might be rooted in, like, the whole gifted program, growing up. Constantly being told you're so talented, you're so great, you're good at everything. You get to college.
That's okay. You touched on for this is a tangent. If I have my sound effects going, that's when I would hit the tangent. Like we talked about COVID, now I want to keep going down this line because it's interesting.
Yeah.
So you was in the gifted program, and I think a lot of students are.
Yeah.
And in high school, I'm assuming. Or just school in general?
School in general. Ever since I was a child, I was in the gifted program.
So how do they judge if you were gifted?
It's actually really funny. I think I only recently found this out looking through old things as I was cleaning. I think you take some kind of cognitive test. Like, I don't think it was necessarily an IQ test, but something to measure your cognitive function when you're like 5 or 6.
Yeah. And
I think actually I did not meet the requirements when I took that when I was a kid. And they let me in. And I don't know if it's because I did it again or something like that, but you take some sort of test. And from from there on, I think based on how you do in school, it determines whether or not you stay in the gifted program. For the most part, I think you do. Like, once you're in the gifted program, you're kind of told that you are a gifted child.
That's interesting, yeah.
And if you're very naturally smart and above everybody else, and at least for me, I loved that validation, and it kind of made me strive to like be the best. And because it was elementary school, things like that, I kind of was. I did very well in school.
Yeah.
I didn't mind studying. Like I was the one that made myself study. Like my parents would tell me, go study, go do this. And all throughout like elementary school, high school, that was what I was in the gifted program. And the only time I experienced failure probably was when I like maybe didn't do so well on the test. But that's about it. And I don't think I necessarily learned how to be bad at something when I first start out and be okay with it, because that's the nature of learning. You're gonna be bad at something first.
Yeah.
I didn't learn how to be bad, and then I get to college, and
There's no gifted program.
There's no gifted program there. Everybody else is just as smart, if not smarter than you. And it's just so much bigger. The pool is so much bigger. Everybody else comes from like diverse backgrounds. Like, sure, they may not have done this, but they really excel at this. And then I kind of found myself like, I can't be perfect at everything. That means I suck. I'm the worst. And I think that really played into my, confidence as whatever field I was going to. That's a personal problem.
Yeah.
I do believe a lot of people fall into that as well. How they manage it, I don't know. Let me know. But
that's what college is for, though. It's almost like, okay, we've been coddling you for 12 years, and it's just kind of like, whoop, we just kind of drop you off and see how you do in college.
Yeah.
And it's like a training ground. That's what I tell some of my students. Like, it's more like training than skill building. It's like networking, working in groups, dealing with critiques. The fact that you don't have to go to class if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal. You don't have to go.
You don't have to go. It's going to affect you negatively in some way, but, like, you don't have to go.
I don't know. So did you get over, when did you feel like, if you ever did, when did you feel like you kind of got over that hump of like, okay, college is hard, but I'm kind of like starting to understand it and rock with it?
Probably like after my first year of college. I think I was getting a better understanding of like, college is hard. Everybody here is really good too. But I think the general idea of like, you don't have to be the best at everything. You don't have to be the best at everything. And that just idea of perfectionism, getting over imposter syndrome, all these other things, like that's just a work in progress. I've definitely gotten better about that, but I think college humbles you. If you needed to be humbled, it humbles you.
I can dig it.
And it definitely humbled me.
How'd you feel when you kind of like decided you didn't want to do the medical school route and you kind of wanted to throw yourself into creativity? Like, did that help with your confidence or did it hurt?
I was really scared. I think I don't know. I think I was comparing myself too much to other people. And so like at the time when I thought I was really good, I was like, wow, I'm really good. I feel like I'm like understanding all these things better than everybody else is at a faster pace. And the more I progress, like, oh my god, everybody understands this already. Like, they're going this way and that way. Like, they're so much more creative than I am. They're so much more experimental. And then my confidence is going down again. And I think, like, I also, in the back of my mind, always knew that I didn't want to be in the medical field anyway. And so, at first, like, being able to land on graphic design, that was like, okay, I have purpose. I have something I'm going to work towards now. And then once I decided, oh, like this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to work towards, then it got really scary. Oh,
Yeah.
things got real.
It's like real, right?
Yeah.
Right. I can dig it. So let's get back to the COVID thing. So you went through college, you get through all the classes, you're about to graduate. Like I remember senior year. It's like senioritis, like your senior year, like you're about to become a grown up. In my experience, to be honest, when I run into students often that are scared to graduate because they're like scared to be a grown up.
Yeah.
So they like go back to school or they like take another class. I'm like, graduate. Like the point of college is to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just gonna want to stay for an extra because I don't know what I'm gonna do. So
Yeah.
how was your feelings like getting toward before COVID happened, like kind of just creeping towards graduation?
I remember I wanted to do that same thing. I was like, do I just keep doing school? Because all your life when you're in school, you have the next step ahead of you, like planned out for you, like from elementary to middle to high school, and high school to college.
Right.
Like, every next step was like kind of laid out for you about what you probably should do. Not that everybody does it, like should do it, but at least for me, I had all those plans, and then afterwards, it's like, oh no, it's not laid out very nicely for me. Maybe I thought, do I go to more school? Like, do I try to get a master's in design because I don't feel as confident in my craft as I should be, and I want to expand on my portfolio. And I think that was all just an excuse for me to like again, put off being an adult.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the question again?
No, that's what O-Tangent's all about. Just keep going. Just keep going.
I was definitely scared, and again, because of COVID, I kind of gave up a bit, and I wasn't kind of on top of things as I wished I were, where I didn't start applying right away. I didn't have a portfolio that I felt was ready to be shown professionally, and so not only would I put off applying to places, I put off working on my portfolio due to this idea of perfectionism, which was procrastination and fear of failure.
Now, was this happening before you graduated or right after you graduated?
This was like at that time.
Okay.
While I was like stuck at home. Well, we were all stuck at home. Before I graduated, I felt that I had no time to like do anything because I was so busy with class and stuff like that. And then after I graduated, I was just feeling working through all those other personal problems that kept me from, moving forward professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just a very scary part of life transitioning into adulthood.
Ooh, that transition to adulthood is crazy, right?
It's crazy.
Like, when does it happen? It's like when you're an adult. Some people become adults at 16. Some people don't become adults till 30.
I don't feel like an adult yet. I still find myself thinking like I find myself doing adult things. Like, I don't.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't want this.
Shoot, don't be an adult. I don't feel like I'm an adult. I really don't. Like, those who know me, why be an adult? Like, who acts like everybody so excited to be adults? I remember in high school, I used to get in arguments, especially with girls, because girls always wanted to be older than what they were.
Yeah.
Stop playing around. You need to grow up. I'm like, why? That would always be my response.
Yeah,
like,
why?
Why? Why would you want to grow up? Being grown up seems whack. I used to say that. Like, I want to be a kid for as long as possible. I want to do dumb stuff.
Yeah, now I'm here. I'm like, why did I ever want to be older?
Right. Okay, so boom, COVID comes. Right in the middle of this, what you're just talking about. Like, feeling trepidation, which you mentioned imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Which is a term that I had to look up because I didn't really know what that term meant. And it's interesting, and we might come back to that as a tangent. But you're going through all that, and then COVID happens. COVID, and it kind of came slow, but it depends on your perspective. It seemed like it just hit us quick, like bow.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, you still got to graduate. So how were you feeling? Were you feeling any things like, okay, are we going to graduate? How's this going to work? How was the transition at UF from like pre-COVID to post-COVID? Was there any like months you lost? Did you graduate later than what you would have, or it just kind of went on?
No, I graduated. Well, again, I didn't like school ended at the time it was supposed to end, which is me graduating. I obviously didn't have any kind of ceremony.
Yeah.
I think some people had those like virtual ceremonies where they would read off names or something like that on over Zoom. I don't think the School of Art had that because they're not as big as the finance school or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the transition it depended also on what kind of classes you were taking. Some people were already only taking like online classes.
Right.
Whereas, most of my classes were in person. And not to say that some of them were fine because, like, let's say the 3D art class that I took, he recorded all his lectures anyway.
Yep.
I didn't always make it to class. And so showing your project was not that much more different because either way you were like putting in your project and showing it on a screen.
Yep.
Whereas, like, I guess you could say this. You're showing it on a screen and talking about it.
Yeah.
What's the difference about showing it on a screen on your computer? But I just think, like, again, like all of the personal ways people were feeling through the pandemic definitely affected how school ended. And so when I graduated, I'm like, I graduated. I submitted my last project in my room at like 12 a.m. I'm like, I guess I graduated now. Like, I don't.
Right.
Like, what am I doing here? What do I do now?
There's bigger problems out there, right?
Yeah.
And I think actually the creative fields, especially like the design fields, I call them screen based. I think everybody has a different experience. From my experience, I tend to write my courses like they're online courses anywhere, whether they're going to be on ground or online, because you just have to write a more comprehensive course if it's going to be online. And usually our courses aren't straight up lectures. We're not lecturing for an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours. One of my classes I do, but it's not lecture classes, so it's mostly project based.
Yeah.
So I think it lends itself a little better to online than other lecture based majors and classes, because me, and I've done that before during Zoom. I had to do that, like a lecture or record myself lecturing, but I can't see. And you're like, everybody turn on your cameras. All that, remember everybody turn on the camera thing. And I was like, in my classes, I always treat my students like they're grown.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. I'm not going to take your phones away. I'm just going to ask you to don't use them in class. I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras on, but if you don't, whatever. I'm like, if you don't want to come to class, don't come to class. I'm gonna mark you absent, but it's your prerogative. It's college. Like, I'm not gonna make you. I'm not gonna go to your dorm room and like grab your hand and take you to class. It's like we're trying to teach you how to be a grown up.
Yeah.
So, but like after you graduate, after you're done, it's kind of like COVID is rocking heavy, in the beginning. What's going through your mind as far as like searching for jobs?
It wasn't going through my mind. Like, I was so preoccupied about everything else in life. If anything, I was just waiting to graduate, so I didn't have to think about school, professional, anything, and I could just honestly just worry about everything that was happening in my life. And like, in one sense, like, I don't think I'm like that representative of a recent grad, because I took a long time before I decided that I was going to start applying for jobs. Like, I think I graduated May of 2020. I was not looking for jobs whatsoever. I had a LinkedIn because I think part of my project, like, they were like, make a LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah.
And I had a portfolio because I did apply for like a job on campus design. That was my portfolio. And honestly, the only reason why I like got started professionally was because I think a friend of mine that we worked on a group project together, she applied for a job at an ad agency, and apparently they found my portfolio because she linked mine on a project we worked together. And then they reached out.
Word.
And that I was not looking for a job whatsoever. And because I wasn't looking for a job at all, I got very skeptical of this email. I'm like, how did they find me? They emailed me from their personal email too. I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But it was, and so like job search was not on my mind. I also didn't feel again confident enough to look for a job. Which is why like, I was like, I'll wait until I'm confident enough, which obviously isn't gonna happen if I'm not doing anything.
Right.
So that's kind of how like I kind of got thrust into the professional field, like, and I took that opportunity. I was like, okay, like I'm clearly not doing anything right now. Let me take this, whether or not I have good or bad feeling about it. I'll take it. I did that job for a bit, and then I took another very long break.
Yeah.
And freelance gig throw in there time, and now I'm doing work like not based on design. And like you said, like I felt like I had to go back to it. Like I want to be creative again. So now I'm here looking for a job again.
Okay. So when you're looking for a job, I mean, you don't have to answer this if you want. I mean, it's not that personal, but so when you're in your purview, is it that you're looking for a job because you just it's time to be a professional, or or you need money, or it's just the thing to do? It's like almost that next step, like elementary, middle, high, college, job.
It's kind of like a mix of everything. Uh, I, you know, I don't want to keep working this job that I'm working forever. I know that that's not the future.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start the next step in my life. I want to get back to design, and uh, after kind of taking this UI course and realizing, oh, I do like design, and I can do it. Like, I'm able to learn new things. I'm still able to learn new things. I want to keep things, and I want to feel like a capable professional who's proud of what they do. And yeah, it's time to be an adult. As much as I don't want to be an adult, like on
Yeah.
paper, I need to be an adult, whether my brain is an adult or not. But it's kind of a culmination of all this. Yeah, I need money. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to live a cozy life. I don't have to be rich and famous or whatever. I just want to be comfortable.
Word.
Cozy.
Word.
So that's kind of that's like the main driving factor. And I do want to learn. Like in these roles, I want to learn, and then obviously progress.
Yeah.
All of that.
I can dig it. Well, in comparison to some of my other students, I mean, I'm a professional. I see a lot of new students every year, and I have some students here who's been here 8 years, undergrad.
Wow.
You talking about fear of being a grown up.
Uh-huh.
We have to sometimes kick these. Well, we try to nudge them. I don't say kick them, but we try to nudge them out of here without giving them the grades or giving them stuff. It's like, I had one student here. They had to get a nudge from the university. They had to go like, okay, you got one more year. If you don't graduate, you just got to go. So yeah, I think there is this, and I see a little more of it, like this fear of what's next.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very popular. I think COVID didn't help because, especially if you're basically, if I'm and stop me if I'm making wrong assumptions, but this is like at this time, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, when you're like about to transition to being I hate saying being a grown up, being a professional, and something like COVID happens. Yeah. Like, and this is your life. This is your life. Like, you're at these very impressionable time in your life with this very crazy time that's going to be looked at from history books as being like a transitionary period in like world history.
Yeah.
You just happen to graduate right before it.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to affect you all. Like I said, whatever the name they come up with, the Zoomers or whatever. And I don't know if it's all negative either, though, because it might make y'all as a whole like more resilient. Yeah. It may y'all had to be quiet for a minute. Like what time when to be honest, I almost missed COVID. like I say that to people and they're like, what? And I don't miss the mask. I don't miss all that crazy stuff and the fear because I actually had like heart issues during COVID.
Yeah.
It like affected me health wise.
Yeah.
But I miss the quietness of it.
Quiet, yeah.
I miss sitting
It's
down.
like slowing down, putting things to a halt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss that part too. I'll be honest, I kind of like didn't do anything for a while.
Yeah.
I kind of miss that. I kind of miss having an excuse to be able to do nothing and bake bread and do things like that.
I was painting.
Yeah.
I ain't never painted. I painted.
Exploring things that you didn't really have time for.
Yeah.
You know, that was the positive. And also I think like I do know a lot of people who also graduated at the same time as me, but really, you know, moved on with their life because they probably prepared really well for it too. Like no one was preparing for COVID, but they prepared well early on for, you know, when it was time to make that next leap into the professional world. Like they did what they needed to do. They had, you know, they built their resume, they did the internship, you know, whatnot. And so I think they were able to take that leap a lot more confidently. And again, they prepared well. I did not prepare well. I can say that, like, I didn't prepare well. And so that's why I was feeling stuck. Not to say that anybody else also prepared.
I'm gonna interject just a little bit. Like that may be the case, no doubt.
Yeah.
That you didn't prepare and they did. I would venture to say that none of them prepared. It's just shit happened. Excuse my language, and luck is involved with certain stuff.
Yeah.
You know, some people are able to deal with some things better than others, right? I would assume since you weren't like a 4-year dedicated creative person, right? You were med school, like that's a big deal. Like that's like I'm assuming that's priority number one. If you're like in pre-med and you're
like,
taking
I wanted the grades. Like I could not, like if I failed, I did poorly on a test, like I felt bad. So I had to study.
Yeah.
But I also had to make the project art.
So that's what I'm saying. So you comparing yourself to another design dedicated student that's all they do. They didn't have to worry about biology classes and physics. I'm assuming what you had to take that in comparison to a designer's curriculum, you know. So I wouldn't even beat myself up about that. Just if I was playing a psychologist role, because our field is so, I can't come up with a word. It's so I'm gonna make up a word. Freestyly. It's like you have a lot of freestyle in you. You just you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
For whatever. Like, so when you got that call, when you got that email, like, hey, we saw your portfolio. Would you like to come in for it? Blah, blah, blah. And if, you know, like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like you're prepared with a portfolio. You have one, you know, you might not be proud of it, but you have it. You're ready to go. You know, you just have to be prepared for that opportunity when it comes. That's just like the nature of our field. Med school is not like that. I'm assuming, right? You do pre-med, it gets you ready for med school. You got to take these tests that are hard as heck. You know, you get into med school, you decide what kind of doctor you're going to be, and you have to do apprenticeships, and you have to do this, and there's like a process.
Yeah, I think there's comfort in the process where it's kind of planned out. Like, you do also probably have to do, like, other extracurriculars to make yourself stand out. Yeah. But, like, in terms of, kind of knowing where to go next, again, which is why I feel like a lot of people want to go back to school. You know what's next for you.
It's comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what to expect. There's projects. It's due on Tuesday. Let me just get it done by Tuesday so I can get this grade.
That's why I think, like, for me, too, I needed to take extra courses because, at least for me, I need that structure for me to be able to base my learning off of, like, at least just personally, I could not get myself to be like, I probably should learn Figma. Let me just look at you. Yeah. I couldn't get myself to do that. That's why I took certification. And then I also liked having some kind of teacher, some kind of, like, guide to give feedback. I don't have too many people in my life that are in, like, the design field. Yeah. And so having some sort of mentor, teacher, whatever, to give me some sort of guidance is also really important.
I hear a tangent. I hear a business idea. I always hear business ideas. If you know me, it's a business idea and everything. I hear business idea. Like you said, you like a guide.
Mhm.
Like a guide is comfortable. Like that's what a teacher is. That's what a, in grade school, a principal, a guidance counselor. It's just like a guide. Like let me help you through these waters. And what if there was and every time I say it, usually 90% of the time this already exists,
Yeah.
right? But a guide for people in the creative fields. Like after you graduate, like there's a cadre of people like me that can help. Almost like you write something, write a little form, hit submit, and then you get contacted by somebody that can kind of like help guide you.
I have seen some like programs do that where after I graduated,
Mhm.
sometime a few months into it, I saw somebody share they were doing portfolio reviews. And so they were all volunteer, like people from different aspects, they could volunteer to do portfolio reviews.
Yeah.
And so I hopped onto that and I had a designer, she was designing for IBM at the time, Hyun Kim. And I was like, great, she's Korean. I'm Korean.
Right.
She's like she seems like a very talented designer. And so I had her look over my portfolio. She gave me really good advice, both like professionally and just like realistic, real life advice. And I've reached out to her a few times, like to be a mentor.
Yeah.
And that has helped a bit. I think personally, I also like I hesitate. I don't want to take too much time, sort of thing. But I've also seen like there are these accounts on Instagram and their organizations like Be the Makers. I don't know if you've
I've
heard
heard of that.
Yeah, or like
Vaguely, yeah.
Design Kids. I think they either recently or I just found out about recently. You can sign up to get a mentor. I don't know how well or how many people
Yeah.
take advantage of that. I haven't. Same thing with like Super High. I found out about this also. They have like a Discord.
Wow.
They have like a channels. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good
channel
to know.
for mentorship too. So like I see these things,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's also a matter of like taking advantage, like taking the initiative to also be on those things. Like I get scared. I'm like I don't want to take like I don't want to put myself out there, and so
That's what I was waiting for you to say. You don't want to put yourself out there,
no.
and that's the crux. And you're just gonna grow into it. I'm just gonna. It just happens. It's like jumping off the diving board in a high dive. It's just like you have to get used to doing that a lot. Like just kind of like looking. And the crazy thing about design is it's so visual. It's not like there's a line of people on this diving board and everybody just has to jump. That's how I think of like traditional majors. I really do. Like there's more of a plan. Like, okay, it's your time to jump. Jump. There's someone right behind you. Hurry up.
Yeah.
Your time to jump. Jump. Your time to jump. Jump. Your time to jump. Jump. You failed. Your time to jump. Jump. And I think in design it's kind of like, okay, cool. We try to teach you all that we could teach you, and then it's like, boom, find your own diving board.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's diving boards all over the place because it's all these different types of design. It's not like I'm assuming you're from when you told me about your major at AUF. It's kind of like it sounds like a more of a all-encompassing kind of design degree. Like we're like a more of a interdisciplinary. Like we're gonna teach you a little bit about branding, layout, typography, a lot of print stuff, right?
Mostly print.
Yeah. And we're not. There's no school like, hey, you want to be a brand designer? Here's 4 years of brand design stuff.
Yeah.
Here's 4 years of interaction design stuff. Well, they're starting to see more of that. And right now, I just see it's like a clear thing of like graphic design, which is kind of like all encompassing, and then we're starting to see more of like the UI design that's separate, and then art.
Yeah.
Right. And art is straight up. That you want to talk about stressed out? It's like be an artist. Like, how do you be an artist?
I could not do that. Doing that in school was enough. Like, I could not do that. Like, the late hours of the night, I would go onto campus into a studio where anybody could walk in and probably kill me. I was alone in those studios.
Yep.
And I would work all night on these paintings of, figure painting, figure drawing, and just, it's one thing to do all these technical paintings, stress out over them, but these people who are art makers who are creating like personal art as their school projects, stuff like that, is whole different.
Right.
I could not. I could.
Right. Nah, it's different. And it's like find your own diving board. It's anywhere in the world. Like the world is your oyster, really. Because I always tell my students like we have superpowers, like creative people. Like we have superpowers. Our superpower is creativity, and that's hard to teach. You know, you could teach somebody how to draw, you could teach somebody how to paint, but it's like how do you teach somebody how to like think creatively or to think conceptually? That's tough. And I'm not saying that can't be taught either, but that's tough.
And they also say it's like a muscle that has to be trained.
Exercise and trained.
Exercised.
Right. And I think a lot of it comes from talking. That's one of the reasons why I launched this podcast is like I think some of this stuff needs to be talked through.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us creatives, we don't necessarily, to be honest, we don't want mentors. So I know when people say you need a mentor, I remember people saying that to me all the time when I was coming out. It was like I don't want a mentor.
Yeah.
Like I have a mentor, not creative mentor, but it's like it's almost like the book thing again. It's like I want to read the book myself, so I can interpret it based on how I read it, not your interpretation of how you read it. So I don't want to become my mentor, and that's just I know that's how I learn. So if you teach me how to do something, then I'm gonna do it just like you did it. Yeah. Like I'm gonna see you do it. So I have my mentor. His name is Brian Stone. I have a few mentors, but he's my main like creative mentor. And for instance, just thinking like top of my head right now, like I had to put together a curriculum vitae, right? And I didn't know what a curriculum vitae was. He was like, you need to put together a curriculum vitae to apply for grad school. I'm like, what's a curriculum vitae? He's like, a resume on steroids. I'm like, okay. He's like, everything you've done, just kind of put it in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, can you show me yours so I can have what I'm even doing? So not even me trying to do it, my curriculum vitae just looks similar to his.
Yeah.
Because of how he structured his is pretty much how I structured mine. There's different layout and stuff, but the structure is similar.
Yeah.
Whereas if I kind of like went for broke on my own, it'd probably look different. But which I don't mind, to be honest.
And also like a CV like that too. I feel like typically there aren't too many ways you would end up structuring it anyway.
Until I just saw somebody's CV a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, like this is a sweet structure. Like, and he posted on Facebook somebody I went to school with, and I hit him back like, damn. Like almost like damn, like now you're making me feel guilty for like I need to update my curriculum.
Yeah.
It's been the same for about 20 years it seems like, but I just add stuff to it. It just gets longer. But the whole mentorship thing I think I don't want to say scare creatives, but I just don't think we think like that. I just think other fields, because we're creatives, it's kind of like I'm a hip hop head. I'm a hip hop head, right? So whatever kind of music style you like, whatever, it's like you're an artist. And it's like I'm coming up as a rapper, as an artist, as a singer. They're like, you need a mentor. Go ask so and so to teach you how to sing. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like you're gonna sing through their lens. Whereas a creative, I'm like, I don't want them to mess up my style. Mm-hmm. I have a style of my own. I kind of want to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
I don't need a mentor. And I just think that word gives us a lot of pause.
I think for me, I was kind of like in the idea of like, they are a different style than I am. Like, will I be able to take their advice and apply it to myself if they're kind of not exactly what I'm like?
Exactly. Same hours. They have kids, you don't.
Yeah.
They're 60, you're not. Yeah, they don't really use computers like that. You do, or vice versa. I get mentorship, and I just think it's the word. That's why I like what you said. I like guidance. Mm-hmm. I just like that. Like I just would prefer a little guidance. Mentor kind of seems like you're beholden to somebody. Like you had to check in twice a week.
Yeah. Get
your mentorship today.
I think I had a kind of negative perception about mentorship too because I had a scholarship. Mm-hmm. I should be talking about. I had a scholarship.
Well, if you don't think you don't know, don't talk about it. You sure you don't talk about it?
It's past it.
Okay.
I had a scholarship that required me meeting with a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt that the mentor that they assigned to me just didn't understand me at all. And granted, it was like based on volunteers, whoever volunteered to be the mentors, and like he was working for like finance, like he was just an older man working for finance, trying to be my mentor in college because he signed up for this, and I would meet up with him, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of mentorship I'm supposed to receive from you. Like, honestly, I would fear the days that I would have to meet up with him because I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And so then like I kind of had this like bad idea of, mentorship where they're just not gonna get me. What am I gonna get out of it? Probably nothing. It's a waste of my time. I mean, a bad, obviously, like not the right correlation to make with mentorship because it's not the same. But and I really disliked that, like, kind of the, what is it, requirement that I had to do. I really disliked it, and it gave me a bad idea of what mentorship is like. I'm like, if I'm going to find a mentor, I want them to be understanding of whatever it is I'm going through, what, like, field I'm in.
Word.
And he was just, like, unfortunately, like, it's just, there was probably no one that was going to be, like, in my field, and that's who they matched me up with. But
he was like teaching you how to be a grown up.
He should have. I think he also just didn't really know what to talk about either. He's like, I'm a well over 40-year-old man. He's probably over like 50, who's again working for Merrill Lynch and like, looking at this little college student like,
that's a designer or wants to be a designer.
Yeah, what do I do with you, sort of thing. I'm here because I said I would. You're here because you have to be.
I'll help you save your money. I can teach you about, the right, get a financial advisor, whatever you choose to do, make sure your money's correct, which is valuable. And that's anybody listening, they might be saying like, that's valuable too. And I honestly think like, another tangent, this is a tangent, but it's kind of like, that's one thing that we suffer from. I think us as creatives, we're not, at least I can just speak for me, as far as finances, the stock market, investing, all that stuff is kind of like it's kind of like, I know I need to do it because I need to do it because I'm a grown up and I do it, but it's kind of like, I don't want to do it. I have a boy, one of my boys, he's really into crypto right now.
Yeah.
Like super into crypto, like scarily into crypto, to be honest. But he's rocking right now. Like crypto is rocking, Bitcoin is rocking right now, and he's like, get into it, but he loves it. Like he loves it. He likes it, and I don't. Yeah. Like I just kind of play around in it, just to kind of.
I can't get into it.
I'm just teaching myself, so I'm not totally out the loop. If that's the way the world goes, that's kind of how I rock it. But he loves it. But and people like that, it's like they can't understand why you don't.
Yeah.
It's like, why? It's rocking. You need to do this. I don't understand why. It's like, I don't want to be checking my crypto every 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And checking the stock market and researching this and researching that and have to go, oh, something's happening. I need to, being stressed out because Coinbase was messing up last week. And now I'm thinking about my family's future because the app is down or is hacked. God. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I want to be creative. Like I've had my druthers, one of my favorite words, druthers. If I had my druthers, I'm going to get a t-shirt that says druthers, my druthers. Have you ever heard that before?
No.
So
I'm waiting for you to define it.
Yeah. So if I had my druthers, it's kind of like if I had my way. That's all that means. If I had my way. So if I had my druthers. Isn't that a good word?
Like pulling up the SAT vocab.
Yeah, man. If I had my druthers, I would be creative all day. Yeah. Like I would hire somebody, have people handling everything else. Handling paying bills, handling my finances. Handling, getting work, I would have somebody at this podcast handling all this stuff that I'm pushing, and I would just be creative all day. Like, let me just be creative all day, and I could just, like, do creative stuff and tell people how to do creative stuff and teach my students how to be creative.
Yeah.
But then, life tends to beat the creativity out of you, to be honest. So to kind of get back to COVID, like, that's super life. Like, COVID was like life concentrate.
Yeah.
It was like life on steroids for 2 years. And it was like, if you don't want to live life now, you about to live it today. Like, you don't know if you're going to die tomorrow. You better...
Yeah, do something.
You better do something, or not do something. It's like they were telling us not to do stuff, but
Yeah.
we're human beings. We can't just not do stuff. I know where we left off, where I think we left off was talking about being creative versus doing software. And I kind of teach my students to be creative more so than being software experts. I mean, there's a place for both in the job market.
Yeah.
But I just think in this AI age that we're in being introduced to, the doing part is going to be maybe lessened than the idea part. Because right now AI still can't think. You can ask it to, hey, come up with an idea for a business that blah blah blah, and it's going to come up with something, but it's going to come up with something based on all of the history of the world, not something that's from an organic brain.
Yeah. Will it be awesome or will it be dope?
Dope or see? Will it be dope or amazing? And it's going to be a lot of amazing stuff, but I don't know how much dope stuff. It's kind of like if a rapper used AI to write his raps.
Yeah.
It would be amazing and it could do it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be dope.
It'll lose that flair, that flavor.
It's going to not be dope. And it's like dopeness and awesome. It's hard to, you can't put a finger on it. It's like creativity.
Yeah.
It's subjective. It's like you think, so, okay, what's your favorite, to end this off, what's your favorite musician group or something like that?
You asked me the worst question. I never have favorites of anything, but let's just say I did have a really big phase when I was really into Lorde.
Oh, I like Lorde. She's dope.
Really into
She's
Lorde.
dope.
Yeah.
That's a great example of dopeness.
She is.
And her name is dope. It's like she has no reason but to be. She has to be dope with a name like that.
Yeah, it's like her first album, great. Her second album, loved it. Third album, it's nothing beats her first album in my opinion. But I'm a big Lorde fan.
When I first heard the name, I heard the name before knowing anything else. I think an award season or something, and I thought it was a rapper. I was like, a rapper named Lorde. They're like, whoa, Lorde, like that. Some rapper is kicking themselves. Like, I should have named myself Lorde. Mine, I have so many, but I'm a De La Soul guy. Like, I love De La Soul. I don't know if you heard of them, but it's a group that's still releasing music, and they're dope. And I remember when they first came out, and it was just like I couldn't put a finger on it. I actually didn't like them when they first came out because they were so different than the hip hop I was listening to, because it was real hardcore hip hop at the moment. And they came out and they were like hippies. They were flowers and daisies and flip up glasses and twisty hair before that was popular. This was like 90. And it was just like, those dudes are corny. Then I kept on hearing it. I was like, those dudes are dope.
Yeah.
And it was like they were dope immediately. And imagine if they used AI to like write their raps and make their beats. Because I think you can use AI for that now. And I think there are going to be a crop of creators, whether it's music, whether it's design, whether it's art, that are going to start using AI to do their creations.
I mean, it's also a tool too. I feel like people use it as a kind of inspiration, a starting point.
Yeah.
Like, put it together for me, see where it takes you, and then move from there.
Right. And I could probably look it up now, but I know there has to be something out there that's like an AI musician. That's all AI. Like the video is AI, they're rapping or singing and it's AI, and it's.
Isn't there like an Instagram influencer, just an AI?
Boom. See, I knew it.
Bot?
I know it.
I think her name's Michaela. Or
there
something.
You go.
Yeah.
And she's probably awesome. Amazing. Amazingly awesome.
I
bet she's not dope though.
Probably not.
I bet you money she's not dope. I bet you money. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. Again, thank you so much. And might have you up here again. We don't know. Like, this kind of went well. I think a lot of insights were gained. The tangents, excuse some of the tangents. But I think the tangents we took were valuable. And
all relevant.
They're all relevant, right? And it's a story. And a lot of people have their stories, and hopefully they can, some people can, even though I haven't advertised this platform yet, I haven't even told anybody I'm doing this yet, but I'm about to. And hopefully it could be valuable, especially to students or people that are about to graduate. Mm-hmm. I think that's where it may be more valuable for.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the most inspiring story out there, but I think like relatable.
You're relatable because you're a regular human being.
Yeah,
You're not a superhuman.
So.
You know what I'm saying? I think there are more you, way more than you think. You know, the whole gifted thing. I didn't even think about that angle. Like, I know, I have those kids in my classes.
Yeah.
And they get to my classes and they get they get smacked in the face and you can tell.
Yeah.
It's like C. You got a C, and they're like,
oh my God, I've never gotten a C before.
They're shaking and almost crying, about to cry.
Yeah.
Serious. And it's like I have to explain to them why they got a C, because they do everything I asked them to do in design. It was on time. They did everything I asked them. They, in the right format. Everything I asked them to do, they did. But just the design part of it was that rubric item. It's like, but. It's like that, but.
Yeah, but. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know? Nobody's going to, when you're applying for a job, nobody's going to look at your grades.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of grades you get in college, and it's going to dictate. Nobody asks for your transcripts to get a job.
So,
they just see you got a degree.
And, like, again, you don't have to be the best. And it's subjective anyway. What might be the best for this job might be not at all what this other job means.
Word. So if you had any parting advice to students about to graduate in the creative fields or recent graduates, and you might not have any. Do you have any?
Be nice to yourself.
Be good to people. Be nice to yourself. Oh, be nice to yourself.
Yourself.
Hug yourself.
Hug yourself. Give yourself a compliment. Be nice. Don't be yourself. That's me telling that to myself.
I can dig it. That's a good advice because other people will try to beat you up. That's just how we are. So don't be one more person beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Be dope.
Be dope.
All right. Another old tangents in the books. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I think I should be saying stuff like subscribe and you know what's that thing everybody subscribe.
Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.
Smash the like button.
Smash the like.
Subscribe. That's what they smash the like button. Subscribe. I don't know, so I'm gonna get that all together too.
Yeah.
All right.
You also have to beatbox for your outro.
And I'm gonna create that beatbox intro and outro. That's gonna happen because that's gonna be dope.
That would be dope.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out, y'all.